Hello students, and welcome to the CompTIA Network+009 Exam Course brought to you by Third Level Technology. I'm your instructor, Jim Herbie. In this episode, we're going to continue in Module 1 in the exam objectives. We're going to discuss Section 1.3. Our topic is Cloud Computing. Let's begin.
A public cloud is an environment where resources are shared amongst multiple customers. In a public cloud, you will typically have a pay-as-you-go pricing model. As each user is consuming their cloud resources, this could be storage, CPU, memory, and others, that each user is only responsible for the amount of resources that they use themselves. Public clouds are also very scalable. This means we can increase or decrease the amount of available cloud services depending on the demand. Certain days of the week or even certain times of the year where we may have increased demand or decreased demand in our cloud environment. The second cloud type is a private cloud. And the main difference between a private and a public cloud is that a private cloud is dedicated to a single business or organization. The private cloud will only be accessible by a single business or single organization and all of the identified users that can access the cloud environment. In a private cloud, you will have very strong authentication. Typically, your users in a private cloud will have to use multi-factor authentication. This is where each user must provide two or more different ways to authenticate their identity. This could be things like a username and password, biometrics, authenticator apps, QR codes, and others. Private clouds are also very helpful with compliance. If you work in any type of industry where you have regulations as far as how you protect and store your users' confidential data, in a private cloud, you normally will have those types of compliance regulations and the auditing reports necessary can be generated directly from the private cloud environment. The third type of cloud is a hybrid cloud. And a hybrid cloud is one that takes different features of both the public and private environment, where you have a public cloud environment that all of the customers and users can access, and that will be limited to non-sensitive data resources. All of our sensitive data and storage will be kept in an isolated segment of the cloud that will be accessible only by a single organization. Many of your businesses like this type of cloud environment because you can access your public cloud resources on a pay-as-you-go model and use the security of a private cloud to keep all of your data that is sensitive to your organization encrypted and safe. Next, we're going to discuss three different types of cloud service models. The first cloud service model is software as a service. Software as a service, or SaaS, is a cloud environment that is providing software applications to its users through a web browser. To access software as a service in the cloud, each user must be able to access the internet. And any software application that they wish to load and run will be done so through the device's web browser. Software as a service typically follows a subscription model. Each individual user will pay a monthly or an annual fee to access the different environments. The nice thing about software as a service is that all of the maintenance and updates for your software applications will be maintained by the cloud service provider. This allows us to focus our existing security resources in other areas. The second cloud model is infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service is when we are virtualizing computing devices. This is when we will take the configurations of our physical network devices and manage and monitor them through some type of software application or interface. And we can manage each of these devices through the software application through the process of virtualization. This is where we can configure the usage of things like CPU, storage, memory, and other services that are provided in the cloud, and manage all of the network devices through that virtualized environment. In infrastructure as a service, you're going to have scalability based on the amount of resource demand you have for a specific type of device. So for example, if we are seeing that we need an increase in the amount of memory we are using in our cloud environment, we can scale our infrastructure as a service to focus on creating more capacity for that memory. You can also use that technique for things like our servers, our data centers, as well as any other type of cloud service that we are consuming. And the third cloud service model is platform as a service, or PaaS, P-A-A-S. Platform as a service is when a cloud service provider provides an environment with all of the development tools that you would need to create and code applications. This is where we can have code libraries, development tools, debugging tools, as well as testing environments. These are all different things that we can have in a platform as a service. And our application developers can use the cloud platform as a service to code, test, and then ultimately deploy new software applications on the network. Next, we're going to discuss three terms that you want to understand when we're discussing cloud computing. And they are scalability, elasticity, and multi-tenancy. Scalability is the ability for our network and our cloud to increase the capacity of a resource up or down. Typically, this is done when we have very high peak usage at certain times of the day, or if we have extended periods of very low user activity. Scalability allows us to manage amount of resources that are being used in our cloud, depending on the needs at that certain time. Elasticity is the ability to automatically scale in real time based on the demand for a specific service. Elasticity is what we call dynamic management. That means that we are using our cloud resources in a real-time environment. Multi-tenancy is when multiple customers are sharing the same cloud environment. These would be things like your public clouds, or if you are accessing some type of cloud service model like platform as a service, where you may have multiple customers sharing the same platform for application development. First, we're going to discuss NFV. This is Network Function Virtualization. NFV is the process of creating a virtual service for some type of tangible infrastructure, device, or service that we have in our physical network. With NFV, we can virtualize so many things. We can provide cloud services virtually, like CPU, storage, and RAM memory. It also allows us to create a virtual instance of things like our firewalls, load balancers, and routers and switches. NFV is going to be ability for all of those different types of infrastructure and hardware to be virtualized into a software environment so that we can manage all of those configurations from one screen. Next, we're going to talk about a virtual private cloud, or VPC. And a virtual private cloud is going to be an isolated segment within a public cloud. A virtual private cloud will be an isolated segment of a public cloud that will be controlled and accessible only by one organization. This is going to be where you see some of your hybrid cloud configurations, where you can have a public cloud for your common needs and resources, and then all of your sensitive data and your confidential cloud activity can be done within a virtual private cloud. This is where it'll be an isolated that is accessible only by one business or organization. Within a virtual private cloud, we can also implement our access control lists, our ACLs, creating virtual private networks, or VPNs. With a virtual private cloud, we can integrate VPN access for our remote users so that our remote users can have a secure, encrypted connection to the resources within the virtual private cloud. Next, we're going to discuss network security groups and lists. A network security group is when we are going to create traffic filtering rules. These will be our firewall rules and our access control lists, or ACLs. And we can apply those rules to multiple individual people or a group. And this allows us to configure things such as what types of port numbers and protocols that can be used by our groups, as well as defining how our traffic can flow. This can be like directing traffic to a specific router or switch. We also have network security lists. These are going to be your access control lists, as well as your firewall configurations. And these can be applied to all of the network traffic going in or out of our network. We can integrate the network security groups and lists to identify where we want specific rules to apply to specific individuals or groups of multiple individuals. Next is a cloud internet gateway. And a cloud internet gateway is going to be how the users within a virtual private cloud can access the public internet. Local area networks, we have our router devices, which are going to be the access of sending or receiving traffic to external networks and the public internet. And configured on your router is what's called the default gateway. And this is going to be the IP address that is going to be configured on your local area network. That is going to be the default location where internet traffic will come in and out of your router device. So think of that type of setup and apply that to a cloud internet gateway. We just mentioned virtual private clouds, isolated segments of a private cloud that's accessible only by your business or organization. And a cloud internet gateway allows all of your users within your VPC, your virtual private cloud, to access resources out on the public internet. Next, we're going to discuss Cloud VPN. And this is when we allow our remote users the virtual private cloud that is managed by our business. So our remote users can access the isolated private cloud that is contained within the larger cloud environment. Cloud VPN has two different types: site-to-site and client-to-site. A client-to-site VPN is an individual user creating a remote secured tunnel to encrypt all of the traffic between that remote user and the virtual private cloud. A site-to-site VPN is when we have a direct connection between two different locations that have its own computing environment at each one. And finally, we're going to discuss Cloud Direct Connect. Direct Connect is when we will have a dedicated private connection between a business's data center and the cloud provider. Direct Connect will have no access out to the public internet. It is a connection that is going to be designed specifically for a data center within our business and the cloud service provider. A direct connect is very popular because it allows us to have very low latency. Because we only have one business accessing the connection, we have high access speeds as well as higher data throughput. It also allows us to have better security because we don't have to troubleshoot and worry about some of the common attack types and attack services that you may have to encounter when you are dealing with a public environment and access to your cloud data in that type of environment.
That will conclude our discussion of Section 1.3, Cloud Computing. In our next episode, we move on to Section 1.4 in the objectives and discuss Internet Protocol Types. We thank you again for following along in the episodes in the course and wish you best luck in your studies. Enjoy the rest of your day.